What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Yala. Yala Butt.
Yes.
Your thrice weekly podcast where we talk about the hottest news and the most buzzworthy topics with a touch of what, Terrence?
What I'm hoping is humor lah. That people find the funny side of it.
Hoping lah.
I hope so.
Hoping.
Today's gonna be a tough one,
Yeah.
man. This is a tough one. Just
Is
let
it
you
a tough
know
one? Like this is the theme every week, what?
No, but
Every
this one
week
I
it's-
really like. Wow, I listen to a lot of YouTube videos on like double speed to try and get ready for this one.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. That's cool. That's cool.
Tough one. Yeah.
Tough one. But before that, is there anything we'd like to plug?
As always, we like to encourage anyone who enjoys this podcast and the debates or discussions that we have on this podcast to share it with at least one person in your life lah. Because I think we could all do with a little bit more debate and discussion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Especially around the topic or theme of today's podcast, because both our serious and goofy topics kind of concern the same, around the same big behemoth of a topic lah.
Yes.
And that is race. Race, my friends.
Racial relations.
Racial relations.
Racial harmony.
I guess, just one thing is that if you're listening to this, the following podcast that we will be recording in the middle of this week, or the next episode, if you're listening to this further a few weeks down the line, is a podcast with Sudhir, where we're going to be deep diving into race in Singapore, like the whole big fucking shebang of the whole topic. But which is, so if you have any questions, just put them down in the Reddit. In the link is in the show notes.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the broader topic today. There's one thing that came up that made us want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And what is that, Terrence?
It is the open letter about critical race theory addressed to Lianhe Zaobao, signed by academics and you know what else and scholars across Singapore.
Scholars, correct. Academics and scholars.
Yes.
So the article actually came out in, let's see, it was posted on June 9th.
Yeah,
right?
That's right.
And it was an opinion piece. So it wasn't a forum letter, right? It wasn't a forum letter. It was an opinion piece. And the gist of it, you mentioned critical race theory. Did you mention that just now?
Yes.
But overall, the topic, the title was expand public space to promote racial harmony. So the open letter that was signed by the scholars and academics was in response to that, like they were against the letter.
Correct.
But would you like to give a taste of what the editorial was about?
I think the best summary I could find was on wethecitizens.net, which I think is by Kirsten Han. Immediately there's an English translation, and she puts the TLDR version, which is, I quote her, it attributes racist incidents to COVID-19 frustrations, social media, and critical race theory, described as an imported idea encouraging racist hatred against white people. So essentially what she's saying is that rather than trying to identify the true underlying causes of all the recent racist incidents that have taken place in Singapore, it generalizes everything under, either people are frustrated with COVID or, people getting angry on social media, and also so-called foreign ideology like critical race theory, which is also a very big topic of debate in the US as we speak.
And I assume that's what the videos on YouTube you were watching were about.
Yeah, correct, about critical race theory. So I mean, the one thing I want to point out is that I have not read the actual Chinese version of the text, but the part that I think bears mentioning, or even just directly quoting from this English translation that Kirsten Han did of the Chinese newspaper, is that they say. Wait, let me just pull it up. Okay, she says.
So you're looking at the full translation of the article, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So
yeah.
The part there, I mean, there's firstly, secondly, why the racist incidents have happened in Singapore. So this is the third point. The article says, thirdly, even if every country's circumstances are different, ideologies and concepts from overseas have changed traditional race relations. There are people who have simply copied the American idea of critical race theory, which encourages racist hatred of white people to the Singaporean context, exchanging anti-white sentiments like white privilege to Chinese privilege, adding to unhappiness between racial groups. And also, foreign ideas have also influenced the culture and lifestyles of different racial groups, including eating and drinking habits and dress, becoming new markers of core racial identities, and silently expanding the othering of other racial groups. So I think this is the when you talk about the critical race theory, this is the chunk that I think the letter is trying to address specifically.
Yeah, but in general, because that one already sounds like fucking academic, critical race theory and all that. But in general, there were other things that the article also pointed out more explicitly. And I will say, we'll put a link in the show notes to a proper translation of the article, because when I first read it, I used Google Translate. And yeah, they call Shanmugam Minister of the Interior Shan Mugen,
Okay.
Mugen.
Okay.
So then I was like, oh fuck, there's probably something I'm missing out here. So then I looked for a version where someone actually translated it from Chinese to English, and I think that's the one that you're reading.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned the third paragraph, right? But in essence, it did go into somewhat detail about how that. Yeah, the pandemic and social media, they almost, like one school of thought, which we also have discussed, is now with social media is bringing to light things that have been happening for ages. And it's just now more on the open because people have cameras. This article seemed to argue that it wasn't that, it was just the current situation is making people behave this way. And it was almost condoning their behavior. So those were like the first points, and the second points, social media, the pandemic, and then the third one was critical race theory. And then it ends off by saying, each of us have multiple identities. We might be Chinese, but also Singaporeans. Similarly, people are Malay or Indian, but also Singaporeans. The point is, we must ensure that our multiple identities are complementary and not exclusive or exclusionary. And end off with the same cheesy stuff like we need to expand our horizons in daily activities and, improve understanding and tolerance between racial groups through increased engagement and interaction. So the open letter was published, I believe, yesterday.
So to clarify, everything that we've been talking about is from the commentary of the Lianhe Zaobao article, right? The Lianhe Zaobao commentary, right?
Yeah, correct. As in the... Yeah, correct. And it was published by Lianhe Zaobao, not a forum letter. Because sometimes you read Straits Times forum letters, you're like, what the fuck? But then you realize, okay, maybe it might just be one person who wrote it in. This was an editorial. That means it came from the publication. And then the open letter was published yesterday. At first, it's published by academia.sg. I didn't even know this thing, academia.sg, exists. Are you aware of it?
No, I don't know.
So what they are is a website maintained by a group of Singaporean academics to promote Singapore studies and to encourage critical debate about the state of intellectual life in Singapore. There's a bit of a mouthful, but there is that thing, and they posted this, and I saw my friend who's the assistant editor of Academia SG share this, and right now it's been signed by 183 scholars or academics.
Are there any big names inside there as you're scrolling through and this is a Google Doc, so actually anyone can access it and see who has signed off on it, right?
Yeah, but so there's a call out at the top. It says, if you're an academic or independent scholar based in, from, or doing work in, on, about Singapore who is interested in adding your name to the list of signatories, please fill in this form. So there is a vetting process. But even before that, what qualifies as a scholar? Academic, I know, okay, you're a professional lecturer. I don't know. Do teachers in primary schools and kindergartens also qualify as academic, or is there tiers of academia?
I think probably we're thinking more of higher education lah. That means like masters.
Then what's independent scholar?
So I think there are some master students in here. Masters of MA, they say MA students, or senior research fellows. So they're not necessarily professors, but they could be maybe doing research at a university or something. PhD candidates. I see like Joshua Yip in there, poets.
Yeah. I see Donald Low.
So there's a lot of writers who are PhD candidates and other people in so-called academia lah. Yeah.
Then what's a independent scholar? Are we independent scholars or not?
No, we're not. We're not studying
Why?
anything in particular. We're not publishing any papers.
For this podcast, we have to read a lot, okay?
Yeah,
and
but
isn't the podcast kind of academic as well?
but we're not like putting it down on paper and having it fact checked by anyone, right? That's the thing, lah, right?
Our Reddit fact checks us, right?
Our
Fact
Reddit
checks
lah.
us, right?
Yeah, but this Reddit University lah. So yeah lah. Maybe we
Reddit
can consider
University.
ourselves independent in that way.
Yeah.
But yeah lah. I mean, I think anyone you would know yourself. I mean, our university gets a mention here. A PhD student from the Department of Anthropology at the University of Pennsylvania. Yeah. So there's a lot of associate professors, students, and the like in there lah. Yeah.
Yeah. So then the open letter, yeah. So it starts off, we are writing as scholars and academics to express our collective dismay, and then they go on to talk about how Lianhe Zaobao was, their way of talking about the issue was uncounterproductive, and basically what you're saying is that like what we also were pointing out, that the article kind of seemed to put the blame on the current situation as opposed to the structural and systemic racism, and then they focus on critical race theory. So maybe you can take it away with what you have learned about critical race theory from YouTube.
Okay, so critical race theory is, I believe it started in the 70s in primarily in academia lah, right, where there was a movement. It's not a very clearly defined thing, but it's generally a movement to examine America's history and institutional policies through the lens of race. So basically, you just imagine any policy that they might have, whether it's about the recruitment of people to the military or anything else. Back in the days, even before Martin Luther King and all that, there literally were policies like in certain states where, black people and white people couldn't sit in the same section of the bus, right? And you could actually exclude a certain race from your restaurant. You could say, oh, this restaurant's for whites only, things like that lah. So what critical race theory is trying to push academia towards examining, using the lens of race to also examine history. That means, I think some of the proponents say they want it to be taught alongside other approaches to studying American history, just so that people can generally better understand how racial tensions, racial relations in America are very complex and have a very, very long, often violent and very bloody history, and how that affects, even till today, the very structures of the institutions that they have set up. So that's broadly, in a nutshell, what I would tell a layperson critical race theory is. Of course, if you ask a critic of critical race theory and a supporter of critical race theory what it is, they will also tell you different things. Yeah. But what was your understanding of it?
In the sense that you need to view things through this lens that acknowledges the systemic and structural issues. And I think it has been implemented even in like teaching math and teaching English in schools. And just for example, I think I saw someone post something from this website called Equitable Math, where they talk about like how in primary school we grew up with that John, Ahmad and Mutu has 20 marbles and all that, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm not wrong, what critical race theory kind of implores people to do is bake in these sort of systemic racial, cultural inequalities into problems like that when learning, so that it's part of the whole learning process, and it doesn't just, it kind of informs and educates, but also does it in a way that is contextual to the kids, as opposed to something that comes in from the side about racism.
And let me correct myself before I get shot down. So it's not just about history. Harish is correct in saying that it's about like everything you teach in school can actually be viewed through a lens of race, right? Like what he said, whether Mutu or Xiao Ming has more
John
marbles,
Ahmad,
who starts off with more marbles and who ends up with more marbles, that feeds into how people think about different groups of society as well. So what do critics of critical, if you can sum it up, what do critics of critical race theory say lah. And these are mostly conservatives lah, right? Who
Yeah.
criticize it. Because right now, okay,
Yeah.
the context right now, in the state of Florida, for example, the governor of Florida just banned the teaching of critical race theory in schools.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, so it's a very hot topic that a lot of people are debating.
Oh, I thought Florida is quite a progressive state.
No, Florida is. I mean,
No.
Trump is staying in Florida right now. I mean,
Yeah, that's true.
that's where he went right after
He just swung the needle.
Yeah.
He just swung the needle.
Yeah.
So I mean, one thing I saw about the criticism is that if you are starting from that path where you're taking into account historical and cultural, like current systemic and structural issues also, it automatically paints the, say, white children as being somewhat guilty.
Evil.
Yeah, being evil. And to do that to kids who really had no fucking thing to do with all the issues of today, doesn't feel like it's almost like a tit for tat. Previously minorities used to start having to work harder to get to the equal ground. Now it's like, okay, let's flip the thing and make it like start the prejudice against the white person to catch up. I'm not saying I agree with it, but that's something that I've gathered from criticism. And they tend to be from the conservatives or the far right.
Yeah. And I think that to add on to that, they say that basically critical race theory is racism itself, right? It's essentially like when Martin Luther King says, "I have a dream," and his dream is of we don't judge anyone by his color, but by the content of his character, right? So when you start looking at someone's skin and they saying, "Oh, because you are a certain skin color, you have traditionally been disadvantaged," and then, "Oh, because you're this skin color means you have been advantaged. You'll be advantaged your whole life." They are saying, isn't that like just 101 racism 101, right? Where you are basically imposing racism as a means of fighting racism, which doesn't make sense, lah. So I mean that's what the critics of it will say. I think the other thing I also often hear is that critical race theory often doesn't because of its linkages to like communist school of thought, the Marxist schools of thought, right? Is that it really what it tries to encourage supposedly is a lot of class warfare and rather not class warfare but warfare between tribal groups and what bigger group is there than classification of people than by skin color, right? And it involves destroying all the institutions, burning down all the institutions that we have now because they're all flawed. And we just take everything down and then we start from scratch and maybe it'll be better. So that's something I hear a lot about people who criticize critical race theory. But how about supporters? What do supporters say about it? Good points.
I mean, I was looking more for criticisms because the supporters I assume it's more along the lines of like, okay, like the system is flawed, the system is prejudiced, the system is biased. It's better we acknowledge it and bake it into whatever our kids are learning so that they are aware of this. Because I mean, you look at Singapore now, you look at the recent videos that have gone viral, and I'm sure everybody wonders, where the fuck did these people come from? Like, what kind of life have they led to lead them to a point where you're a 60-year-old lecturer and you think it's okay to lecture someone in an interracial relationship in public?
Yeah.
So I would imagine like for the supporters for critical race theory to be embedded in everything that is taught is that, okay, you start them young so that they are aware of it.
Yeah.
And
that's true. And another thing that critical race theory encourages is to not be blind to the fact that race, skin color, all that has an effect on how people have behaved in the past and everything, right? And even during that period, I mean, the couple hundred years that America's history, when they draw up the institution, when they draw up the plans for the institutions and everything, they are also affected by the zeitgeist at that point of time, like what people think of other people at that point of time. And inevitably there will be blind spots where they don't realize like, hey, this unfairly, disadvantages a certain group of people compared to another group of people. They don't even see it because they don't have the benefit of that kind of foresight, right? So that's what critical race theory tries to. It will make you try and rethink some of these whether these institutions are really the really trying to do the best for everyone.
So now that we have spoken so much about critical race theory, hopefully if you are listening, you kind of have maybe a little bit more info than you did at the start of the podcast.
Yeah.
And hopefully it's not you're listening and thinking, what the fuck are these two idiots talking about?
Correct.
Hopefully we have illuminated it.
No,
We've
but
talked about-
I think the critical race theory is a very interesting thought experiment for yourself also, right? Even if that's all you take away from the podcast today, just thinking about how do disadvantaged groups, how should we get to a position of equity in society, right? Should we give them a boost at the start, or how should we do it, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I think I had heard of it before, but I didn't know to this extent that it was going on. So were you aware of it?
No, but I from everything I've been reading is that it really has come up in the last few months because of Joe Biden's.
Few months.
No, specifically because Joe Biden is one of the first bills that he signed as the first few bills that he signed as the president of the US to look into
that it be incorporated.
Yeah, incorporated into education.
Oh.
So Trump apparently had already brushed it aside and said no. So it wasn't even there were a lot of other things to think about besides critical race theory in schools, But I think the George Floyd incident plus Biden coming in and saying, yeah, we got to look at this and all, and generally Biden has a lot more left-leaning younger people in his cabinet as well, so you can imagine which side of the political spectrum they lie on.
Yeah. So I mean, the reason why we are talking about it is because it seemed like it was the crux of the open letter, as well as and that was what they chose to focus on, But now that we are both a bit more informed than we were about this, what do you make of the open letter or the letter in the first place, given that it is a newspaper of your people?
Yeah, so of your people. So I mean, Harish and I have probably spent more time and more effort into understanding and explaining critical race theory than this Lianhe Zaobao commentary did, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it is an article and you don't want to go too long and everything, but I think what is missing in the Lianhe Zaobao article is really a more neutral, explanation of what critical race theory is, and rather than using it straight out as ammunition, saying that it's copied from the West and aped from the West, and I even reading it in Chinese, I just feel that it's just too simplistic, the way they just try to explain it.
Because literally, the line from the article, of course, this is the English translation, but I assume the Chinese version is not too far. It's there are people who have simply copied the American idea of critical race theory, which encourages racist hatred of white people to the Singaporean context, exchanging anti-white sentiments like white privilege to Chinese privilege, adding to unhappiness between racial groups. So to me, when you read that, it's like, wait, critical race theory is not fully about encouraging racist or hatred of white people. If someone reads it and starts to hate white people, that's like saying you watch a movie about a certain group of people and you start to hate that sort of people.
Yeah.
So it just felt like, wow, you are, and it's not a well-known theory, let's be honest, right?
Yeah.
To just put it into that one-line description is fucking irresponsible of a national publication.
Yeah, and I mean, they have the space and the means to have a sidebar explaining what critical race theory is, and what Harish and I did, the pros, not the pros and cons, but the arguments for and against it, right? And give everyone at least the bare skeleton understanding of what it is.
Yeah, and even at a very high level, right?
Yeah, and then let people judge based on that, and also mention that it is a huge thing, that is being discussed in the US now, right? So it's not an irrelevant theory from the 1970s that no one is discussing, So
and it's ironic because sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna make another one of those umbrage jokes, but never mind. Skip it.
No, just make it. Come on, just make it. Okay, you have a captive audience. They're listening.
Editorial integrity.
Dude,
yeah,
this
blah, blah, blah.
this is
you all
not
know
like
the joke, Yeah. Take
I don't know.
editorial integrity, all that, SPH.
No, this is not like that family kind of dinner where you try and make a joke, no one laughs, and then everyone says, "Come on, Terrence, tell the joke."
No, I was just
It's
gonna
just
say.
me and you.
So of course, we try to we can get angry because we are trying to hold our newspapers to a higher standard, right? especially
see.
for older folks. Even those people of the Tan, that Professor Tan's age lah. A lot of them still only read newspapers as their main source of like information.
Tan Boon Lee.
Yeah. So I think it's important to be responsible, and also don't treat your readers like idiots lah. You know, like they just got to whatever you say about critical race theory, that's it lah, right?
Yeah, because if you just blanket put like that, I mean, in some way it's a bit hypocritical, right? Here you are saying that, we are adopting this ideology from the US, which is bad, but everything they're saying sounds like what a far right or conservative person in the US would say. So aren't they also adopting that stance? Right?
Yeah.
But
right.
but what you said, right, about how this, you must look, if you look at a demographic of readers, chances are they are probably older, they are maybe not as tech savvy. And it's basically the older generation lah.
Yeah.
So that's where on the flip side, right, like I was wondering about the open letter by the academics. Who is it targeted at?
To Lianhe Zaobao lah.
To Lianhe Zaobao.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess it is targeted towards Lianhe Zaobao, but it's an open letter to Lianhe Zaobao. You think they will react?
They won't lah, because it's really a very niche issue, and I think the letter from the academics is actually really very focused. Is very focused on the demonizing of the critical race theory lah, right? Because I think they're not actually advocating for it, but they're just saying that by misrepresenting what it is and not really doing a more balanced or thorough exploration of what it is, or explanation of what it is to your readers, you are doing a very big disservice to even to academia itself, lah, right? When they debate these issues, where they try to come up with some kind of understanding or compromise between everyone about what critical race theory is, lah. It just outright says like critical race theory is a vehicle for anti-white propaganda and things like that, lor. So I think that's what they are taking. They spend basically about three paragraphs talking about critical race theory and how they give a bit more background about it, and they mention things about it, like whether or not you agree with critical race theory, and whether you think it's a good thing or a bad thing. Or I think it warrants more explanation, more discussion than less lah. So I think they're trying to just fill the hole that Lianhe Zaobao left there, lor.
Yeah. So, and I mean, this is not the first time that we have spoken about Lianhe Zaobao, because I believe in a podcast last year, we also talked about an article that was published on 13th April that, the translated title is "Do Not Make Groundless Criticisms During the Pandemic." I guess the title doesn't say much about what it's actually about, but it talked about how the outbreak of COVID-19 in migrant worker dormitories in Singapore was due to the, I say in air quotes, backwardness and the alleged bad habits of South Asian migrant workers.
Yeah.
So that's why, and that was also not a forum letter. It was an opinion piece lah. So I'm just wondering, because I assume the circulation of Lianhe Zaobao is quite wide, right? Why? How? I don't remember that like bubbling up to a national issue or something. Yeah, people were talking about it, but this also feels that if not for this open letter, I wouldn't have fucking known about the article.
Yeah, I mean, the usual social media and people finally willing to say the piece and everything.
But that's where, does it strike you? Does it surprise you? Does it surprise you that the Lianhe Zaobao that publishes these kind of articles without almost being held accountable or like being held to the fire, given the fucking situation right now, to post something like this? I don't understand how that process works.
I mean, but going back to even understanding critical race theory, like, I listened to at least 4 or 5 different definitions of what it is and what are the important features of it, right? So I don't think there's a real consensus on what it is. I think the fault that Lianhe Zaobao did here is that they found probably what was like the most convenient thing, that the thing that fit the narrative the best, right? Which is that, it's the importation of foreign ideas that is causing these fault lines in Singapore, these racial fault lines in Singapore lah. So I think that is just a bit lazy, way too convenient an excuse. I think critical race theory is not something that is that is meant to be taken so lightly and just used as a excuse for racist attacks or what lah.
And I mean, the thing, I think there have been certain public figures and politicians in Singapore who also use that analogy of importing these sort of foreign movements or causes into Singapore and warning Singapore against it, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I feel like, okay, we look at this article and it's like, oh my God, how can you fucking make the comparison? But if the leaders themselves are saying that, that's where it feels like, okay, and it just makes it clear the importance of words uttered by leaders lah, because I almost feel like they enable these sort of mindsets.
Yeah, correct. And I mean, and this is coming from someone, I think I've said before, where I'm not super supportive of the term Chinese privilege lah, right? Because I think it just, especially in our context, I think it fosters more confusion and divide than it actually helps the conversation. Whereas in the US, I think like white privilege and all that is something that they've been contending with for much longer time. It's a general better understanding of what it is and all already lah. Although they're probably still arguing about it, but it's also based on a very different set of circumstances that they're using it lah, right?
No, but to clarify, when you say you feel the term Chinese privilege can be more destructive, you're not saying you are against the belief that there is systemic racism. It's just the word lah. Because I know you have mentioned Chinese advantage before.
Yeah, or majority advantage or whatever lah. Basically
majority advantage.
Where as long as you're a majority in a group, there are certain blind spots that you will have towards how everyone feels lah, right? And the disadvantages that some people have, or advantages lah that some people have. Well, when you use the word privilege, it just smacks of a sense of like unearned benefit, that someone owns, and then someone who like his life is in the dumps and he doesn't feel like he particular has any advantage over people in society. Then you suddenly smack a word privilege on him. Then it fosters a lot of anger lah, and that's why it's there are a lot of people who react very badly to the word Chinese privilege.
But how does advantage make that sound any better?
Yeah, I think advantage is like, I think advantage is more of a neutral term, right? Like you say, they are one goal up in this football game. They have the advantage when going forward. I mean, that's circumstantial, right? Your circumstances mean that you're in this position, you're in a better position, lah. But when you say privilege, it's almost like you're enjoying something that was gifted to you that that you didn't earn or what lah, right? So I think, as subtle as it is, there is a difference. Like me saying, "Hey Harish, you have the, you have the privilege of very very good looks lah," versus you have the advantage of very good looks. There's a very subtle underlying difference when someone says something like that lah. Or you flip it around, you can say, "Hey Terrence, you have the privilege of having like fair skin
color,
skin color, privilege." Or versus your skin color is an advantage lah, right? Right, that kind of thing.
So I guess that's almost
like if I travel in China, I can blend into society more easily because of my skin color. That's an advantage lah, right? But do I see it as a privilege that I have my skin color? Or no, I mean, it wasn't up to me. I didn't choose the skin color that I was born in, right?
I guess maybe there might be the literal definition of privilege, but also the social use of the word privilege, because I remember before this whole thing about privilege, I would also say that privilege tends to be associated with wealth and status,
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas advantage feels a bit more, how you say, like earned or something.
It's a neutral
but I mean,
thing,
that's like a topic of a whole other discussion. But I was just thinking, can you imagine in tennis, if they swap out advantage for privilege?
Yeah, privilege.
Like Nadal and Federer playing, you're like, okay, privilege, Nadal.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't sound right? It doesn't sound like they earned
privilege.
It sounds like they sat there and then suddenly it was given to them. Yeah.
Privilege, Federer.
Exactly. This sounds wrong. From 40 all, then privilege, Federer.
But I mean, like, so coming back to this, like, what do you think will be just now you said Zaobao won't respond lah. Do you think like?
I don't think they'll respond because, like I said, the critical race theory is there's so many definitions out there, and it's up to you to. I mean, there's still a lot of debate going on about what exactly it is and who started it and everything, right? So, like I said, it's a movement. It's not a fixed in stone, like everything you can Wikipedia and find the exact answer to it. And so Zaobao can say, yeah, I looked at sources and these are what the sources said, and then we wrote something based on that, lah.
It's like a primary school essay lah.
Yeah.
You just Google, you're like, oh, this one, then you make one paragraph about this.
Yeah.
Then you make one paragraph about that.
Exactly.
So that means like in your weekly Chinese people meeting, is this going to be discussed?
The article
Yeah.
or the open letter?
I like how you haven't even questioned the term weekly Chinese people meeting.
Oh no.
I meant that as a joke, but does it actually happen? Oh fuck, it actually happens.
It actually happens. Yeah. I'm always sitting there conspiring how to have more privilege in society. Right?
So that's why when I message you and you maybe don't respond, it's because you're in your
Zoom call lah. Zoom call with all the
Chinese people Zoom call, is it?
Yeah, all sharing the article. And then just laughing at it. We got to maintain the little privilege that we have over
Maintain
everyone.
the majority privilege.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if anyone is listening, try and get the link to that Zoom call.
Yeah.
And just Zoom bomb it. What was the term? Is Zoom bomb? Is it Zoom bomb?
I think so. Well, basically, you show your balls in a Zoom call, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean,
Your
going
minority
back
balls,
to the open letter,
yeah.
I think a big part of it is, because critical race theory is used by a lot of academics also, right? So I think that's why the academics that are reacting so strongly to it also, because with fellow academics who are being villainized by this Zaobao's definition of critical race theory. Yeah.
Because I was going to say, it might even reach more people if it was 185 influencers who signed it versus academics.
Oh,
Can you imagine, like,
I would love to
185
see
influencers?
Yeah, love to see it. 185 influencers. I mean, basically, there's this.
I mean, it will get more reach, lah. It'll
be like sponsored by Gush Cloud or something.
Yeah, that's.
You probably get some free gifts, and there's some affiliate marketing associated with it also.
Yeah, so instead of MA student, Department of History, National University of Singapore, it'd be 200,000 followers, TikTok, 27 million views. Wow.
Yeah. So
interesting,
Yeah, I mean, it's been because of Trump and everyone. There's also been a very, there's a lot of distrust of academia and scientists, science and all that as well. Especially and I mean the whole larger conversation about COVID and what to believe and everything. So it's just a very sensitive time for academia also lah. So I totally understand why they are writing this open letter with such indignation.
Yeah, but I mean, we will put a link to the open letter in the show notes if you haven't seen it already.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm curious how, and I mean, that's where if there are any academics listening, if you have any thoughts on this or if there's any reasons why you didn't sign this, it'd be great to fucking hear it, man.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
But speaking of academic and really, really smart brain busting things to talk about. Our goofy topic is also in that realm, right? It's
correct.
One of Harish's favorite
films.
It's his all-time favorite film, I think. And this is the director of that film addressing a very controversial issue that happened in the film. And what is that film that you love and have talked so fondly about in all the years of this podcast?
I have definitely talked about it, but I wouldn't say I talked about it fondly.
Yeah.
It is the movie Crazy Rich Asians.
Yeah. Woohoo. Singapore's best movie ever.
Yeah. Correct. Crazy Rich Asians. So the big news is that while promoting his latest movie, which I didn't know he was a director of, it is the whatchamacallit, In the Heights, which is an film adaptation of Lin-Manuel Miranda's musical.
Yep.
He said that he regrets not making the South Asian characters in Crazy Rich Asians more human in response to criticism for casting brown actors in subservient roles. And that whole criticism was actually quite a big thing when the movie came out. There were articles written across a bunch of websites.
Yeah.
I'm looking at one that was written by Quartz, back in 2018, and yeah, the title was the trailer for Crazy Rich Asians has some asking where are the brown faces, and I think that the response to that was like, okay, wait for the full movie to see. And then when the full movie came out, there was just like one scene where these two Indian security guards were kind of caricatured in one scene with no speaking lines. So now Jon Chu said, yeah, he wishes he made them more human.
Yeah.
And he's going to try harder for his upcoming sequel.
Yep.
So why did you want to talk about this, Terence? Because you sent me this article.
Yeah. No, I mean, I know that it's a very sore point for you. Like the moment.
No, okay.
The moment
first of all, it wasn't. No, okay. Fuck you. Shut up. Okay, so it wasn't.
Let me finish.
It wasn't.
The moment.
No, okay,
scene,
fine. You finish.
The moment that scene, I saw that scene in the cinema, I was like, oh, Harish is gonna like light up at this scene. This scene is gonna like make Harish light up like Christmas tree, and like he's gonna just blow his top. So I know Harish was watching it later that evening or something like that. So I was like, dude. After I finished the show, I was like, yeah, dude, it was damn awesome. Go enjoy. And then
so I would say I did not enjoy the movie, but not because of that scene particularly. It's just I thought the whole movie was not even a good story lah. And I think part of me was like it was being heralded as this Asian savior for representation and all that. And I think that hype, admittedly, it may not have been Jon Chu's doing directly, but the hype on the internet was kind of annoying me because it felt like, okay, it's representative of some Asians, but not all. And now, honestly, to see you say this, I find it so hilarious.
Yeah.
I find it fucking hilarious.
The fact that I, as a Chinese person, I watched it and immediately that scene just jumped out at me. It's like, whoa. I think they use the stereotypes of basically like Gurkha guards, right? Or like basically the guards were, I think they were wearing like turbans or something. And then the way they were like, the way they appeared in front of Aquafina's character's car, it was almost like they were like animals like that lah. And I felt a little bit uncomfortable with that because that's exactly the kind of stereotypes that people have of minorities in Singapore sometimes lah, Like a lot of old people, this person can't catch you, Matang can't catch you, Mangkali come and all that kind of thing, right? And it's very poisonous.
So why I find this whole thing hilarious, I mean sad but also hilarious, because it's goofy as fuck to me. Because I'm reading one article that talked about the recent press junket he did while promoting his current movie. And he said that there's a lesson that I did not understand until it happened. I was like, this is a book that exists and I'm making this book into a movie. I can't add a new character into this book. And then he goes on to say he wish he could have made the brown characters in Crazy Rich Asians more human by giving them more dialogue. And to me right now, I almost wish he didn't fucking say this lah. Because to me, he's saying it during a press junket where he's promoting his newest movie, which is a very diverse cast. It's done by a minority playwright who's fucking amazing. And he's the director. So of course he has to say this. But when all the criticism was being thrown out back in 2018, did he ever say anything? Not that I recall. So when I look at this, I'm like, fuck this lah. Okay, this is just... So everything that the movie was standing for, everything people were saying, for so long we have heard, people say it's a white character, it's adaptation of the book, you can't create a new character, but it has left Asians out. Didn't he do the exact same fucking thing?
Yeah, I mean, then he's apologizing for it now. So why so angry with him?
I don't know. Okay, I'm pretty sure in a week or something, I would appreciate him for apologizing. But right now I'm looking at it, I'm like, wow, this is so ridiculous that I don't even know whether he means it or whether it's just because he's doing the press tour for his latest movie lah. And it came up during the press thing.
I mean, to be fair, there might have just been that blind spot for him as well lah. In the rush, in the joy, in the how epic the scale of the movie became, right? In terms of being a global hit and everything. You're just surrounded by people who are just telling you you're doing an awesome job, and you never really take the time to stop and say, hey, is there something that I did wrong, or is it just haters gonna hate or whatever, and maybe it's only after a certain amount of time of reflection and all that, then he has come to the realization, yeah lah, it's true lah, he could have done better lah. So
Correct, but if you think about it, like why I find this almost like more goofy than anything, it's if you were to kind of, you think people who are non-Asian are gonna be like who maybe realized that a few years ago they did something wrong, and now they acknowledge that it was wrong. You think they will be given that much leeway?
I think so.
And I'm saying this only because I just find it when I saw it, I was like, okay, like I guess because of the circumstances, I'm just unsure whether or not he's doing it just because of the press or because of his PR director, because it just feels like an odd time to talk about it lah.
No, but
like the sequel is not coming out.
But in fact, I do respect that he even bothers to address it, because he can just continue keeping quiet. It's not like he's not being praised for helping minorities in America and everything already lah, right? I think he gets a lot of applause and a lot of praise for what he does for the Asian Americans, and now in the Heights for different ethnic minorities in America lah. So for him to still come out and address this, even though it was it's like you said, people weren't even talking about it as much outside of Singapore lah, maybe. I think it's pretty good. It shows that there is some growth, there is some self-reflection going on in there lah, and they're not just clouded by the success lah,
Yeah, but I just find it funny because I know there were a lot of people who were writing about this back then, and they were always getting shut down. They were saying, this movie is not going to represent all Asians and all blah blah. So why can't you just accept it and all that? And but then now when the director comes out, I'm assuming people like what you said, like it's good that he reflected and he has growth and all that. But back then, right, I specifically remember people posting about it, and in the comments, people saying, "What do you want? Huh? It's just a movie. What? It's not supposed to be reflective of the real thing." Blah 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 blah. And everyone who was posting about it was meant to be like, fuck lah, like what's the point? And then it became divisive lah, because the supporters of those posts were like, this is, but everyone was like, it's just a movie, what? It's not a documentary, it's just a movie, what?
Yeah, but
and then now when the director comes out, everyone's like, oh, he reflected, and it's good, it's good, that.
I don't know.
So that's why I feel it's like, wow, that's goofy lah.
But again, hindsight
is goofy topic.
Hindsight is 2020. Remember, the movie was made in 2017, like almost 4 years ago. And in this day and age, like 4 years, that was like probably even before Trump was a president and all that. I don't know, maybe during Trump's time or what. But literally
2017 Trump was president, what?
Yeah. So no, but maybe pre-pro and the writing process already started already, and you couldn't just change that overnight also lah, right? So I'm just saying that it's as much as it seems like it's such an easy thing for him to have done 4 or 5 years ago, the conversations people are having, the conversations that people dared to have, the conversation that people even dare to go up to a director and say, hey, you could have done this better. It was a very different timeline, The rest nowadays, it's like, people just on social media, they're coming out and saying things already, right? They don't even need to wait for any official time or portal to say something. So you gotta get it. But what I want to see is that the rest of the cast, especially the Singaporeans in the cast, right? I want to hear what they have to say about it, lah. Because of course they loved the movie, they loved working with Jon Chu. A lot of them have become much bigger stars like Henry Golding and Tan Keng Hua and all that because of this movie, right? Fiona Xie. So what do they think of that particular scene when they watched it, And
no, but I mean, just No, go ahead.
No, if they realize that, maybe I used to have a blind spot or something like that, I think it's very helpful for one of them, for any of them to come out and say, hey, I also now, years later, I look back and I'm like, actually that scene slightly problematic. If I knew about it, I could have done something about it, but maybe I didn't know about it lah.
Yeah, I mean, like for actors involved in a production, I think there are sometimes it's out of their control. Yeah. But I'm just saying that everything you said, right, has been said before about let's say the white executive producers or white directors in Hollywood, and all I'm saying is that for Jon Chu and for everyone around that hype who were using the exact same things against white directors for not casting Asians, then these people also need to be held up to the same standard lah. So that means what? Now there's Crazy Rich Asians. Then like I as an Indian director need to rise up against Crazy Rich Asians and my South Asian brethren and come up with a Crazy Rich South Asians. So to me, that's why I find it so goofy. Is because you have the white directors who are keeping out the Asian people. Someone makes an Asian movie that keeps out the South Asians.
Yeah.
Then where does it end, yeah? It means the Eurasian, at like further down the line, there'll be a Crazy Rich Eurasians because they were given a scene in Crazy Rich South Asians that caricaturized them, which was made because Crazy Rich Asians caricaturized South Asians. So I just feel like I'm all for personal growth and people acknowledging like their mistakes, but then the same things that were being thrown to the people like a few years ago should also be highlighted here lah. So that's why I found it goofy lah, because it just feel like if you just swap out the ethnicities and all, it feels similar.
Yeah.
It feels similar.
I mean, it's
of course
what you're asking for. Yeah, we don't want to go down a Crazy Rich slippery slope, lah, right? And
yeah, every Crazy Rich Asians there'll be one ethnic
every niche minority also
kind
gets
of fucked over.
Crazy
Then they have
rich,
to make their own movie. Yeah.
people, I mean, actually most rich people are like usually overweight as well, but you don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But I guess it's similar to what we're talking about critical race theory, is that you don't want to just in one bucket say that this you need to solve world hunger with this movie lah, right? But if there's some acknowledging of the fact that you're filming in Singapore, there's a multicultural city, and not all Indians are bodyguards or security guards. I think that to me that's a step forward lah. And it's very easy to still continue to poke holes and find the problems with everything they do. But every time, that's the thing lah. You got to also give people their due if they did something good lah. And then also you can criticize them, but don't take away from the whole experience and say that it was terrible because it did not feature a South Asian character.
So let me just reiterate. I'm not saying the movie was terrible because of that one scene and because it didn't have enough brown characters. I just thought it was a bad movie. Okay, stop fucking painting the blanket on me and putting everything.
That's your private opinion. That is Harish's private opinion.
Yeah, I know it's a private, but I just want to clarify.
Objective about it. It's just a subjective.
Yeah, correct. It's a subjective opinion, but I just want to clarify that it wasn't anchored in that one scene.
Yeah.
That one scene, I was like, okay. But overall, as a movie, I thought it wasn't a good movie lah, in terms of storyline and acting lah.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I saw it as a great Friday night popcorn entertainment, and the group that I went with all enjoyed it. How about the group you went with? How about the group you went with? Did they enjoy it?
I went with my girlfriend and she thought it was okay.
I mean, she wasn't allowed to say otherwise, lah, right?
Fuck you, what do you mean not allowed to say otherwise? Just to clarify, the group that you went with, the group that you went with, was it like a outing after your weekly Chinese meeting?
Maybe.
It was all Chinese, right? It was all Chinese, right?
Then we went for dim sum after that also, yeah. We went for dim sum in Geylang.
And then next morning, we played a round of ping pong, right?
Exactly. Yeah, so I just want to say, if you have not watched Crazy Rich Asians, it's a good Friday night, just chill and Netflix kind of show. But yeah, don't hang your whole hat of like of expectations of like your race and everything, being represented on it lah. Because even even as a Singapore Chinese, there's so much of it that I just find ridiculous, and such caricatures of Chinese people also lah, like the whole mahjong.
No, correct. But I must also say that if you watch it now, it is devoid of all the hype that was going on in 2017, 2018. And I think if I were to watch it now, I would say, okay, it's just a rom-com.
Yeah.
What annoyed me back in 2017, 2018 was that it was seen as the bastion of Asian representation in Hollywood. And all I was saying was, it wasn't. It was a good representation, but it's not the be all and end all. Yeah. So now if you watch it and you enjoy it and you think, oh, Harish is a fucking salty bitch, then I'll be like, you shut the fuck up, you build a time machine, you go back to 2017, 2018, and then you watch it there and then you tell me your opinion. Because if I watch it now, I might have a very different opinion.
Yeah. So you notice I wasn't the one who said Harish is a salty bitch. It's Harish himself.
Yeah, because
he acknowledges that there is the possibility that might run in your mind.
Yeah, of course. And I know it because I've seen that speech bubble, that thought bubble over Terrence's head so many times when I talk about Crazy Rich Asians. He's like, oh, now salty bitch again.
You're wrongly attributing your own internalized racism onto me. Okay?
Hey, fuck you. Don't try and be a Lianhe Zaobao in real life, okay?
Internalizing your own racism.
No. Don't be a Lianhe Zaobao.
Yeah.
That should be on a t-shirt. Don't be a Lianhe Zaobao.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
it's yeah, interesting lah. Everyone you can. I mean, it's not much to discuss other than what Jon Chu says. A couple of lines that he says, lah, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, interesting.
Correct. Yeah,
Wow.
correct. But yes, now we are on to a more light-hearted part of our podcast called the One Shiok Comment.
Yes. What is your one short comment?
My One Shiok Comment is something on Reddit by OK_Ken 8292.
Okay.
And the comment just says, "Hey Terrence and Harris, just thought I'll drop in and let you know that my partner and I feel like you guys are our mutual friends. We're always telling each other something like, I heard somewhere saying this, like we are so well informed, then calling each other out. Oh, you heard from Yalabat, right? Haha, thank you for being our source of information. Always looking forward." And I mean, I know it was in the last podcast or the podcast before that where you said one of your friends sent you a screenshot of his wife sending him an article talking about how podcasters are now replacing friends almost. Yeah, and I thought, oh shit, that's nice.
Yeah.
That's nice to know.
Yeah. It's pretty cool I like it that people are discussing the topics that we talk about rather than like what we wore or anything like that lah. Right?
Yeah, and people are remembering us. Oh my god. You know what would make me so happy if it's like if I'm walking on the street and I just hear someone saying, "Wow, Petuha really sucked, man."
Yeah.
Or like, "I miss Sugar Daddy Heng."
Yeah.
Woo! That would make my fucking day, man.
Yeah. So that was from I think
That made me
episode
fucking day.
169. 169, right?
Yes.
Correct,
Yes.
Yeah. And then
Correct.
I think my my favorite comment was actually from also from Reddit, where someone came up with a meme. Basically, it's called by Hayata lah, who has done a lot of interesting memes of us. The episode with Terrence as a gangster. And I think he references the fact that I saw a comment that someone said that my hair makes me look damn paikia now. Then he put me in the poster with you know 15, the movie or Tan with the Abeng.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, he put me in the background of one of the scenes in there lah. So I think that cracked me up because that's exactly the last place that you will find me when I was 15 years old. Hanging out with tattooed Abengs.
That's
in
true.
Geylang. Yeah. Absolutely. Like when I was 15, that was absolutely the last place I would be.
So what gang did you hang out with when you were 15?
Probably. I mean, I was very religious lah back then. I was very. I was church going, God fearing, and everything.
Church gang, your church gang.
Salvation Army, all that kind of stuff. A lot of interesting activities, but not gang, nothing gang related like that. Yeah.
I see.
Right.
That is cool.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, cool. So then we end off with our one shiok thing of the week.
Yeah.
And what is yours?
Yeah, my one short thing is I watched Raya. It's an animated show on Disney Plus over the weekend. I think a few months ago or late last year it came out as a movie, but obviously COVID, so no one actually watched it. But it actually is it's called Raya the Last Dragon or something, and it stars Awkwafina acting as a dragon. And what I liked about it, I mean, it's a very standard Disney kind of story lah. I wouldn't say it's like there's anything in there that really like, whoa, shit, this is my mind is blown or anything like that. But what I thought was pretty cool was that they integrated Southeast Asian culture into a story, but they did not actually use anyone's actual culture lah. They invented like completely a new universe, a new culture, everything. But it's all influenced by Southeast Asian culture. And the person is like, for example, the person is cooking something that obviously looks like Tom Yum soup, but they don't call it Tom Yum soup lah. And so they so everything and everyone is like Southeast Asian in the story, and the cast is all Asian. The voice cast is all Asian and everything. It tells a very important story about even within a common group or tribe, there's a lot of issues of mistrust and everything. And you can see it's an allegory to about talking about climate change or about relationships, even between ASEAN countries or Asian countries or between Asian people, how diverse we are and all that. So I thought actually, and at the end of it, I didn't feel like it was like fucking preaching to me or anything. So I actually thought it was, okay, this is something that I can get behind. And Aquafina was really, really pretty funny as the dragon and everything. So yeah.
Raya is R-A or Raya and the Last Dragon.
Yeah, so even the name Raya, it sounds like a strange name for a dragon, right? You think it's like Indonesian or Malay or something like that. And I think that's completely deliberate, lah. To place the story somewhere in Southeast Asia, in a mythical Southeast Asian kind of context. Huh? And then all the armies, the uniforms, everything, all look very vaguely Southeast Asian. So it's not, it's Asian in that way, but it's not like, the Angmo kind of Asian where basically it's just Chinese American, right? Yeah. So it's really like, I think they properly studied like how Southeast Asian art and culture, the differences between each different country and everything, and tried to incorporate that into the story, which I thought was pretty smart. Lah.
I see.
Yeah.
Wow.
So if you're feeling angry about Crazy Rich Asians, maybe you should watch this one instead, lah. Raya. Yeah.
And Raya is the thread between lah.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
As in Aquafina is the
she's
thread
a common
between,
thread. Yeah, and she's funny, man. She's good. She's good in this show. Yeah.
That is cool.
So what is your one shot?
All right. My one shot thing is I'm not really a gamer per se, but I just happened to see the trailer for Battlefield 2042.
Okay.
Have you ever played Battlefield?
Yes, I have. Yes. Casually,
I think it's coming out. Yeah, it's coming out on October 22nd, and the trailer is fucking mind blowing, man.
Really?
Like, I don't know about the game. I never played Battlefield, but I just watched it, and I don't know. Maybe Battlefield trailers are always like this, and maybe this is a shitty trailer compared to previous trailers. But I watched it. I was like, oh shit, this is insane. The graphics are insane. The way, I mean, because it's a trailer, it's 5 minutes long, and they just show the different landscapes of battle. One is in a desert, one is in a mountain, and it's just fucking insane, man. It's like a big budget Hollywood movie, lah. And I was thinking, just made me wonder, like, fuck, man, these games, how? I mean, every game like this probably takes years and thousands of animators, lah.
Yep.
And whenever I look at a scene, a zoom up, I'm like, every strand of hair was probably like, I don't know, like just like a lot of human labor going into just creating that one strand of hair and how it moves in the wind and all. And it blew my mind, yeah.
Do you want to play it?
Yeah, it was. I would like to, but I don't know whether it's enough for me to buy a place. Is it PlayStation?
Yeah, PS5.
Buy something like If it's just to try, yeah, sure. But I can imagine this game also. There's a learning curve, lah, right?
I mean, all games these days are a bit more
learning curve,
a bit more learning curve, lah. You won't just become good at it overnight.
But do you like those sort of first person shooters?
I think I stopped playing first person shooters when I started getting nauseous from them already. And that was way back in the day already, yeah. Like maybe 10 to 12 years ago or something like that.
Because I can imagine if you're playing it on a TV with sitting on the couch, and it can get to you after a while, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it's quite a pity because some of these like first person shooters have actually become like really good at telling like single player
stories, right?
Yeah, stories that really immerse you in that time. Like I think Battlefield 1, which was about World War One, I believe, was the first time that World War One was really so was really the experience of it, trench warfare and everything was distilled into a really high octane action game. So
is that what you played?
I believe so, yeah. So it was quite interesting. It makes you after you play the game, it makes you feel like reading up a little bit more and just finding a little bit more about that era and everything. So that's why I feel being able to play first person shooters is a real privilege. It's a privilege.
It's a privilege. Not an advantage. It's not an advantage. It's a privilege.
Yeah.
First person privilege.
Exactly. First person privilege.
What a way to end off and circle back to the issue.
Yes.
Privilege.
Yes. Race and privilege. But I said, as we said, we'll be addressing all these issues, especially in relation to the interracial couple the gong
Yeah.
lady, the one who was gonging with the guy in the background.
Yeah.
And then all this critical race theory, we're addressing all that when we talk to Sudhir later this week.
Sudhir.
So yeah, we need you guys to also give us your questions. And don't feel afraid. Don't be intimidated by Sudhir. I think he's very open to talking
He's super
about
chill.
very like any kind of questions. He's a very smart guy,
Yeah.
and he like very like articulate, everything. But he's very open to different types of questions.
Hell yeah, man.
I think we are the ones that are like
Cool.
gonna shoot you down if you don't give us anything smart.
Yeah, that's right. Please, you must either be an academic or a scholar.
Yeah, we are independent.
Independent scholars.
Independent scholars. Yeah,
Independent scholars, correct.
Google is my search engine.
Yeah, not content creators. Independent scholars.
Correct. Yeah.
But yes, that is the end of today's episode. The next episode will be the one with Sudhir, so stay tuned.